the word that you use a lot is that's really helpful to me is nourishment and connection. And so I just think this is really timely, brother, because it's already such a helpful part in my journey. Just finding your content online and consuming it. Just the point of view at which you have on sex is just so it's refreshing, and it's already provided for me an additional teacher on my tool belt to continue on my journey. So thank you, man, for all the work you do.
Awesome. Can you tell me a bit more about it? I'm always curious about like what how you see it from your perspective,
Yeah.
my work. Like what how would you describe it?
The most there's a couple things that stand out to me as being really interesting so far. One of the things is the spectrum of sexual experiences that can be had, and how pleasure or an excitement is one of the things on the spectrum. And things like meditation are not exciting, but deeply powerful and beneficial. And so don't limit your sexual experiences to just the way that maybe you've picked up through, social programming or capitalism. It's this exciting, more, better, sexier, hotter, adding more pizzazz and more glitter onto it. But open yourself to a wider spectrum of sexual experiences. That is something that's been really impactful for me. That's something that, the phrase good shit sticks, that's stuck with me. Another thing that's stuck with me is the talking about females' desire for sex not being about orgasm. And that to me was like a really, really helpful shift. Because then you go into, and admittedly, so that was just last night that I watched that specific video. So I haven't had the opportunity to have sex with my partner and keep in mind that her deepest desire may not be for pleasure in a surface level sensory body experience and orgasm, but to feel the connection and to feel the worship and the love from her partner, which is me. Yeah, so those
Man, I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, cool, man. So those are two really great things.
Yeah, like I respect you massively as well because obviously, like I watched some of the clips of, obviously, I can't watch a whole channel, but I've tried to watch some of the clips. I was just curious, and I watched the whole conversation with Lauren. That was like so beautiful.
Wow, thanks.
And I could kind of see sort of the journey that you've gone through, and it's just really amazing. It's amazing that you've done it all yourself. You've kind of I could see where you started. I could see where you are now. It's really incredible,
Yeah, man.
So
yeah, dude. Some background on that, man. I was raised with a really funky relationship with sex because of just being raised super religious. Religious. Everything was sin. Everything was bad. And once you got married, you could have sex, and then it was good. Then you could do it, but even then, it was kind of a hush hush thing, And so it's been really cool, man. It's been a really, really awesome journey here. Because when you can't do something, when you repress it, then you get this obsessive thing about it. Repression, obsession, that whole thing. And so for the most of my adult life, it's been an obsessive relationship with sex. I can't get no satisfaction. I can't get what I want so badly. And I want it so badly because I never allow myself to have it. And so it's been this like very slow, trusting release of this clenched fist around sexual obsession, and allowing myself to just not orient my entire life around sexuality, and at the same time deepen so much more in my sex practice, becoming such a better lover, as at the same time becoming less and less and less fixated on sex in my normal life.
What did you like? How did that happen for you? Did you have some kind of sources that influenced you, or like what helped you in that journey? What were your sources? Or was it like completely sort of grassroots kind of thing?
Well, it was. I mean, I definitely have a really awesome therapists that I've seen for a while, though our work isn't so much in sex, and the whole
Mhm.
sex thing is more of an afterthought in our conversations. So I think most of it's been more, yeah, just like self teaching, inspired deeply by the moments of like
Amazing.
peak moments of like sexual scenes, like this should be awesome, but extremely void of any sexuality or feeling in my body. Those moments for me of just like more, just more excitement and more people, more bodies, more lovers, more porn, more hookups, more hookers. I mean, like just
Mhm.
more. And that same song rings in the back of my head. I can't get no satisfaction. And eventually, about 2.5 years ago, I was like, "Fuck, this, this is broken. Whatever.
This will never
This
end.
will
Yeah.
never end." And there's this quality of sorts that
Mhm.
the harder I the harder I push towards this, the more it like I accelerate quickly towards this idea of satisfaction, and the rush is exciting, but I don't think I'm ever gonna get there. And there's a equally very frustrating part of it. And then my whole relationship with sex was just compulsive. I just was irritated and I wanted some.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, that's been my journey, man. Just tons of reading, tons of learning, and it's fucking tons of journaling and self discovery and practice, man.
Have you been reading things about sex as well?
Um, have I read things about sex? Not
Well, you mentioned David Data, so you read that.
Yeah, not until recently. I just read the book The Way of the
Uh-huh.
Superior Man about 3 or 4 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and that's been really
Mhm,
helpful
mhm,
for me. And then
mhm,
also I
mhm.
just started
I
reading.
can see, yeah.
I'm
Mhm,
about halfway through the book Dear Lover by David Data too, and
mhm,
um there's another book from the core that I've listened to by John Wineland, but that's all been in the last like 6 weeks or so, man. Most of it has been like,
mhm,
most of it's been like, you know, tuning into my body, lots of meditation, lots of like kind of alchemy with the feeling. Like, what does it feel like in my body when I feel what I label as being horny? And, if I really tune into that, it felt more like an irritation, kind of the way I've described as like being in a hot car. Like, get me fucking out. Like, I
mhm,
need this
mhm,
thing. I need stimulation. I need entertainment, and just kind of an obsession of sorts with like, dude, that's fucked up. Like, how I need to get it out. And so then, a couple YouTube videos every couple weeks helps to it helps you grab the next rung, that kind of thing.
mhm. Awesome. Well, hey, we could like talk about the next step of the journey kind of thing
Yeah.
now that you're out of the cage,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, now that I'm out of the cage, man. Yeah, dude, 100%. It definitely feels like an out of the cave kind of situation, out of the cage situation,
Mhm,
where I've gone
mhm,
from this just like this deep, confusing, misdirected, an addiction, really, of just trying to dig down to satisfaction and getting more and more lost, to now really finding my way up through the top, almost like the hole has gotten much smaller, and now I'm at the surface level. Now I'm at sea level, man. And now it's like, okay, I'm starting to see these two feelings start to come up, where one says purpose, and one says pleasure. And one says, in my sex, I can go for more pleasure, which I've done that a lot. Objectification of people, of my partner, sexual stimulus through pornography, and I've done the whole get more pleasure route. And but the other one
mhm,
that's coming up is like in the book Way of Superior Man. One thing that's talked about a lot is is sex in service of love, and
Mhm, mhm,
essentially opening the
mhm,
heart of your lover to be
mhm,
expression of love itself, and to be that's the nourishing
mhm,
experience for the feminine. And so there's a kind of a concept that is newer to me, which is like the ejaculation being held off in means of devotion towards your lover, so that you can do the job. You can really be present and make love with somebody without just unconsciously dropping off into, just a ejaculation and going like, well, I'm tapped out, I'm out of here. So that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like
mhm,
looking at my
mhm.
sex practice going like, okay, I can do the whole like, oh, I feel so good, this is so fucking good for me and I'm feeling amazing and this is my moment and I'm feeling awesome. Or I can go like deep connection with my lover and evoking out of her this feeling of openness as I'm penetrating her, not just
Mm,
but with my presence
mm,
and my unwavering attention and devotion.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, man.
Good stuff. Good stuff, yeah. I mean, lots of things like we can talk about,
Yeah, let's
and I can sort of, I can try to.
what's the modern perspective on sex is pleasure and entertainment. I agree, and I think that this it's interesting that it's all solo, right? It's like what you can get from it. You can get some pleasure, you can get some entertainment, and then you can go on about your merry way. It doesn't feel there's not a texture to it that feels very much aimed at connection or nourishment.
Yes, I think there is the culture, and then there is what people really want in their hearts. Yeah.
Mhm.
So obviously, a lot of people are influenced by culture. So I think the culture has formed around that concept, but I believe that what people really desire for in their heart and what they look for is what you're talking about, a deeper connection. But I think it's frustrating for a lot of people that you basically like you have a very primitive tool to try to reach that deeper and richer experience, and that becomes frustrating because we're kind of striving to, we've been given this concept of pleasure, while in fact what we want is a deeper nourishment and love and connection. We kind of intuit that, but we're trying to achieve it with pleasure, and it's falling short, you see.
Do you think that that's like a is that a tripwire of sorts, just in the spiritual journey of life? Like just getting past the pleasure tendency, just like, oh, it feels so good, and you could just like forget it all because it feels so good, and you know what I'm saying?
um what do you mean by that, tripwire?
Like like in our heart, we there's
Hmm.
it's many of us can find this desire in our heart for connection, and we can
Hmm.
sense, we can, intuit that there's this, man, what I'm really after is not success, it's not achievement, it's not even pleasure, it's this deep sense of connection with others or connection with the beloved. And that is what would be that's what my heart and soul longs for. And so the method that we can achieve that through in one way is sex. But sex has these kind of like little deceiver gremlins of sorts that are like, come over here, you can have more pleasure this way, and you're like, this feels great. And so you kind of get lost in the moment, the haze, because it feels so good that you lose your focus on, I'm here for the connection. I'm here for the conversation. Almost like you had a negotiation with someone you wanted to do business with, and you went and ate at a restaurant that was so good, you forgot what you were there to talk about. You're just like, this pasta is incredible, and you left all full, your belly, oh, but you didn't leave getting what you really came for. That's what I mean by tripwire, like a deception of sorts.
Hmm. That's interesting. I think they're definitely not mutually exclusive, and you can definitely feel very present to your pleasure, as you know, and to be very conscious in it, and to feel a tremendous connection during it. So
Mm.
if you are so intended, yeah. I think um, it's not so much a distraction. It can be an experience where you feel, uh, you know, it's a difference between being lost and being with it and being really present. So you can experience a lot more pleasure by actually being present
Mhm.
without being lost. If that makes sense, and probably being present is actually your most important sexual technique in terms of actually intensifying and increasing pleasure, without getting lost. But there are both ways of doing it. One is to get lost and one is to stay present. So it's whichever one you choose. So both options are available.
In the pleasure.
Yes, if that makes sense. And it's also about how there is an experience of richness and beauty in this moment, and like really feeling what is happening. And then there's the experience of escape and escalating, right?
What do you mean?
Which are also sort of, well, for example, the typical approach to sex in our culture is to to try to intensify, to try to find some novelty, to try to find something more engaging, to try to basically um, stimulate the kind of the clickbaity
Yeah.
thing in your mind, rather than to focus on the feel good, the blissfulness, the beauty, the nourishment that is here already, and
Yeah.
to appreciate it more and deeper. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's something I'd love to hear you talk more about, man, because that
Sure.
feels like that feels like a dynamic that needs more language around it that people can hear and begin to
Hmm.
open up their mind that, oh
Hmm.
man, there is a different direction I can take these sexual moments. Instead of thinking more better, more better, more better, I can think deeper and more sensitive to the wider spectrum of emotions that are happening right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, language is difficult because we don't have language at all for sex. I have thought about this uh, because it's been sort of forbidden for so many years, really, sex. So it's like while we were developing language about arts and literature and everything, we just had this thing that was there, like we just didn't talk about it. So we literally just don't have language for it.
Yeah.
I find it's really interesting.
Yeah.
There's 5 words, pleasure, turn on, orgasm.
Fucking.
Uh, 2 more, I forget which ones what they are. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like such a varied and nuanced field. It's like, like if you think about music, how much language you use for music. I mean, this is like even more varied. Well,
Mhm.
maybe not more, but just as varied.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yes, we do struggle to explain it with to have language for it. That's why I try to to introduce new words for it where I can,
Yeah.
to differentiate. For example, I never talk about pleasure, for example. Like I've literally, you wouldn't see the word pleasure in any of my videos. Like I
Yeah. What?
always talk about sexual energy,
Yeah. Like if this was
you
if
know?
this was a video right now and it said stop having sex for pleasure, and someone clicked it, what would Alexey begin to talk about? You know.
Well, it makes me sound like I'm against pleasure, which I'm not.
Of course.
It's so it's not like it's not mutually exclusive, it's not incompatible. It's more like
Yeah.
expanding, kind of seeing it as a bigger thing and a more expansive thing and a richer thing, and it's got more components to it than we thought.
Yeah.
Because when we think about pleasure, pleasure can be physical, can be psychological. Yeah, so it's like either entertainment or a sensation, like pleasant sensation in the body. But uh, the reason I see sex as sexual energy is because I think there's just more happening there in every moment. Apart from, even that physical sensation, for example, is has a sense of energy to it, a sense of aliveness, a sense of some kind of nutrition, some kind of enrichment to it. That's more than just having a pleasant sensation with an object on your skin, for example. Yeah, so it kind of really runs through your body. If you think about things like love that flows between bodies and connection that you feel right now between you, these are, in effect, they are substances which we still haven't really kind of explained more clearly in a more detailed or scientific way. We can imagine them as substances that affect us, that we really feel in this moment. They sort of go somewhere and they are absorbed by us and they have an impact. Now, all of that is happening at the same time.
Like the substances are like
So for me, that
connection and closeness.
yeah,
Those are substances, you're saying.
love, connection, closeness, closeness of the bodies, the energy of the body, feel good of the bodies, and the sexual energy that's flowing, the sexual sensation that is flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of that is there in the same moment.
Mm-hmm.
So through one touch, that's the composition of every touch. So for me, that is a lot more than pleasure. And the
Yeah.
way it impacts us, the way it affects us, is a lot deeper than just having something pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
100%. The it's like it seems that you've taken it a step further, because for most of like my friends that I talk to, the conversation goes like, either A, they don't feel good during sex, period. And so it's like, I asked my friend a couple years ago, do you feel good during sex, or do you feel good about the fact that you're having sex while you're having sex?
Hmm.
It's like, does your penis
Hmm.
actually feel good? And the answer was like,
Hmm.
like, they're like, I don't really pay attention to it. And then the answer was like, nah, not really. I kind of feel good during orgasm, but the rest I don't feel good. So there's like that level. And then the next level would be like, I actually feel good during sex. I actually feel really good. My body, I can actually feel what's going on in my body. I'm embodied. I've connected with pleasure.
Hmm.
Then it seems that then it seems like the furthest that most of the people that I've talked to get is move past just your body feeling good and focus on making your partner feel good. And
Hmm.
that's about as far as the school of thought has gotten, until I've
Hmm.
until I've
Hmm.
bumped into a couple people, you being one of them, that says, you know, you are your ideal of what sex is about is too narrow. You've narrowed it down to just being pleasure, being entertainment, or sensation. Widen that to include all these other
Hmm.
things of connection and
Hmm.
soul nourishment and love. It's really, really interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. We open our capacity to feel things with practices. So there is where somebody is at the moment, like what you are commenting on. People are at different stages that you've spoken to. You've moved through different stages yourself. So the more you sensitize your ability to perceive, to feel sexual energy, the more of that experience you discover,
Mm,
and then that becomes more and more reinforced reality for you that you've seen yourself from your experience.
mm.
You know, so it's basically just cooking a better meal and then seeing how nice it is.
Yeah.
So essentially,
How do
yeah.
you? So we talked a little bit before we started rolling about my
Hmm.
own journey out of sexual compulsive
Hmm.
behavior into embodied
Hmm.
pleasure, and now moving into trying to practice feeling those other aspects of the sexual experience.
Hmm.
What advice do you have to
Hmm.
me and the listeners that have a similar experience to mine, that they've come out of the cage, so to speak, and they've now become back in touch with their own sensations in their body, and now they want to step into being a better lover, and not for their own shallow pleasure and sense of like validation, but to really open the space so that love can exist between two bodies.
I think it's important to create the purpose. What is this whole experience for? The If you're not going to do it for escape, if you're not going to do it for just entertaining yourself, then it's an interesting question. Well, what is it going to be for? I liked when you raised that in your conversation with Lauren. You said, well, there's almost like a new meaning that's we are sort of finding in
Mhm.
sex. It's interesting to define more what is the meaning. You know, um, I found it useful to um, kind of see sex as basically a field of nourishing energy that you go into.
Mm,
So the sense of nourishment, I think, is essentially, the reason I use that concept a lot is because I think it has everything in it if you relate to it this way. So it does have pleasure, but also it has nutrition, it has enrichment, and it's also quite a wide range. So it's not limited to one particular kind of sex. Everything can be nourishing in different ways. So if you see sex as it's basically a time, it's like a dimension in your life
mm,
where you go and you spend some time saturating
mm.
with all that nourishing energy that is composed of the sensation and what we call sexual energy and love and connection. It's all kind of mixed in there. The effect of it is being uh, saturated and enriched by it, and then you take it with you. So it's kind of like if you imagine yourself. I mean, you don't need to imagine yourself that way, but to simplify it, it's like you're a sponge that's basically soaking it up. So that's the purpose of sex, rather than in the mainstream is exactly the opposite.
Mhm.
It's like you're bursting. You're bursting balloon. You need to release it because otherwise you're going to die.
Yeah.
So
I
it's like having to release it all out of yourself. Yeah.
I wanna yeah, that right there, man. Like, there's a paradigm shift of sorts that you can enter with sex where it's no longer about the orgasm. It's no longer about
Hmm.
ejaculation, especially for men,
Hmm.
and what's
Hmm.
and then you go like, if everything I'm doing is not a means to have a climax, an orgasm, ejaculation, then what's the point of it? And then you could start filling in that blank space with answers like this. Well, sex is a field of nourishing
Yes.
energy to enter, and the idea is to saturate yourself in the sexual energy, to spend
Yes.
time in that space where sexual energy is
Yes.
flowing, so that you can appear back in your life fuller and richer.
Yes. Yes. Because there are really amazing substances to take with you, and it's kind of
That
silly that we've created this whole concept that you're supposed to be like the purpose is to empty yourself of all of this.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, 100%. Maybe it's maybe it's our roots, man. Maybe it's the Puritanism and stuff. Where you go like, the purpose is to get rid of it. Like the purpose is to get
Well,
that shit out. You know.
I think it's just something that hasn't been updated. To be honest, it's clearly in a more back in the day, back in the bush, where it was like things were fairly simple, and this is what it was all about. But now that we are in a different stage, it just hasn't really been updated. To be honest, it's become
Yeah.
more than anything, it's been kind of hijacked by the commercial culture and just hyped up. The orgasm is this, and the sensationalism of it. But conceptually, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Maybe
And what I wanted to say as well, yeah.
I was just gonna say maybe that's one of the great. Maybe that's a great way to enter this. I've got like step one, how to move on to the next level. Step one, what's the purpose of
Hmm.
this? And is the purpose
Hmm.
ejaculation and orgasm? Is the purpose just a pursuit of the climax of pleasure? Or could you see sex as a field of nourishing energy to enter, and satiation, or not satiation, sorry, saturation
Hmm.
is the point to saturate yourself. And that while you're
Yeah,
having sex, while I'm having sex, while anyone's having sex, if you just check it in your brain and say like, what am I doing right now? What am I trying to go for right now?
exactly,
Man,
exactly,
I'm actually just going for orgasm. You go, okay, well, let's open up mind to consider, maybe we could just go for what's happening right now. Maybe we just kind of bask in this and move in this and try to expand the space that we're existing in.
exactly. You probably have encountered that there are already a lot of people practicing sort of non-ejaculation, and techniques for, I don't know, like squeezing this or squeezing that and channeling sexual energy this way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing to add to this conversation is, I think, like, you're exactly on point here. The most important technique in all of this is not a physical technique of how you're managing your sexual energy in your body. That's fairly easy. The most important thing is your mindset. Is like, where is your mind in it all? What are you doing with it? Because if you're just, trying to make sex longer, that's a crappy purpose, because like you're just suffering, you're just denying something to yourself. I want to finish it now, but I'm trying to make it longer. Why are you trying to make it longer?
Yeah, good question.
Like, why are you trying to make it longer? What's the point?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to make it longer because it means that I have more energy flowing into me.
Mm.
That's why I'm trying to make it longer.
And
It means I get more filled up, and that means that in the moment you're enjoying it
yeah,
as it's flowing into you.
but that's what I meant earlier is the tripwire. Alexey is like, you're that's a great way to experience sex, is to bask in it, to be nourished by it, and to be saturated by it. But there's this like, like push now for like an increase in pleasure, and it's almost impossible for most people to like not just press the button, so they miss out on sitting in that experience.
Uh, I'd say we've learned harder things in our childhood to
Yeah.
to control ourselves. So,
Yeah, and it's really interesting that
you know,
I can tell that my language on this and your language is different, because I tend to talk more from like it's being mutually exclusive, like it's pleasure or it's the other things,
exactly.
and yours is
Yeah,
more of like,
yeah.
let's just widen and encompass it all.
And another thing I want to tell you about this is, like, a lot of guys get scared. They're like, "Oh, never have an orgasm again. I'm going to explode. I'm going to die. I can't do this." But like, it really doesn't need to be like, you can come. You can come at the end. Like, you don't even need to do non-ejaculation. Non-ejaculation is a great practice, especially in a long-term relationship, probably essential, like, in sort of in a proportionate amount. So it's a good thing to take up. But that's not the point. Like, you can come at the end, um, but with the awareness that the main purpose of it was still to saturate before that.
Yeah,
You know, that was the main meal, and then you can decide to come, not to come. So
yeah.
that's still there.
It's man, it's really cool. Like the videos, the stuff you talk about is really cool. One thing that I watched last night, uh, I was cooking a burrito and listening to you spiel some wisdom, was about like how us as men, we focus so much on coming, and it's like, you said, that they like the guys are afraid not to come. I thought that was a really funny choice of language. Like, they're afraid not to, like they don't know what's going to happen if they don't come. Like, they must come. Like they
Hmm.
couldn't
Hmm.
imagine not coming. And
Hmm.
it's like, and then if they don't feel like they're going to come, they have, like, we feel this instinct to make sure that we come, and so then it transitions from like this consensual experience to like me using your body so that I can finally come. And that's kind of that's
Hmm.
interesting, man. That's interesting. And it's so solo.
Yes, and
It's so self-indulgent, it's so
yes,
much about yourself instead
yeah,
of participating through the union of someone else to create the space to soak in.
yeah. And I'll tell you something from talking to a lot of women. I mean, they really know that moment.
Yeah.
They can see it, they can feel it, and it really changes the mood for them. And it's one of the reasons, actually, why. Apart from other reasons, it's one of the reasons why for women often penetration is like their least favorite part of sex, is because they almost feel that switch from a lover
Mm.
to just, okay, the animal that needs to come, to like, can't put it any other way.
And
And they feel that switch at some point, yeah.
sorry to jump in, man. If I
Hmm.
don't, I'll lose it if I don't say it. Uh,
Yeah, 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 go for it, yeah.
your partner will be less into your advances sexually if you always must come. That's interesting. Like, if you must come,
Totally.
then just a little rub, just a little cuddle. If it gets a little, there's some sexual energy moving on, then it's like your partner, and many times it's the woman I don't want to fucking do, I don't want to put out, I don't want to do all that right now. But if you through experience have shown your lover that, that space of sexual energy, we can allow sexual energy to flow into this area together and experience that without having a destination in mind. And then it comes back
Hmm.
to what you said
Hmm.
earlier, which is, it's not that I'm not wanting to come or I'm going to put it off for no reason just to make it longer. It's just that we're totally down at any time to allow any amount of sexual energy to come in and flow and nourish our relationship at any point without having to
Hmm.
use it for our own need for pleasure or something.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think this kind of inflexibility about, like, it has to be the full sex,
Yeah,
and it's kind of all or nothing. This is one of the reasons why actually, you know, especially women often, but it's not just particular to women, it can also work the other way.
of course.
But it does often happen with women that women get like really jumpy about anything at all sexual. Like, you come into the kitchen, you want to kiss her, she goes like, I don't want any sex.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
so,
having sex.
and that happens a lot. That happens a lot because there's no flexibility, because she knows that basically she's committed to everything now by just having one kiss.
Dude,
So
it's so lame, man. That's
it's so what?
that's so lame on our
So lame.
on our parts as dudes. Like, it's so lame that we do that.
Well, I think that um, the interesting thing is that it's not so much about men controlling themselves as men discovering that it's actually really good for them as well
Yeah.
to have that flexibility, because I actually think that male sexual energy is more fragile than female sexual energy. The reason why often in relationships it feels like the man is chasing the woman is because women are so shut down, they're not really enjoying sex. So you've got this like polarized chasing dynamic where it's just intensified, but if you actually discharge it, and women are having sex that is really kind of fulfilling for them, you normally, well, not normally, but you will often get a situation where the woman is the bottomless one, and
Mhm.
she could just have sex all day if you give her all day, and the guy can't. The guy, for his physiology, is just a lot more taxing. So what then happens is that all these little practices of flexibility, they become great for guys to have more access to sexual energy in a relationship for themselves,
Guys
so
do?
they can also guys can then sort of, that flexibility starts serving men as well, because men can then have sexual
Snacks.
connection with their lovers more frequently, yeah,
Yeah.
with in a kind of in an easier way that it's not so taxing on them.
Mm.
So I believe not so much in that guys need to control themselves, but they need to discover
Yeah.
other possibilities of having sex, because good for woman, good for the guy as well.
Yeah, and dude, like, that seems to be the way that a lot of women and men feel about their relationship with sex, where it's like the man wants it
Mhm.
and the woman doesn't. But in reality, it's not that the woman doesn't want it. She doesn't want this lame ass version of self serving ejaculation oriented. It's just like about you, dude. It's just about you coming. Like, she makes you want to come, so you need to come. And that's what they don't want. But find a and obviously I'm saying woman and man, but this exists as for different people in different relationships. But find a partner, find a woman who doesn't want to bask in sexual energy and to be nourished by it. Like, you'd be hard pressed, right, to find someone who doesn't want to do that. And it's not that she doesn't want to have sex with you, dude. It's that you do this weird thing when you guys have sex where it's just about you coming and she's a object for you to use to come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I was to be fair, obviously I would sort of counterbalance those points a little bit by saying that, well, sometimes it is that, and sometimes the guy is really genuinely trying. Sometimes there is stuff on the woman's side as well that, women often need to unlock in themselves and to connect with sex better themselves. But I think culturally, there is definitely sort of the established practice of sex that is very much on the foundation that works for men and doesn't work very well for women.
Yeah,
So
the way it's set up now.
you take most normal sex where it's not necessarily that the guy is selfish, but you just having kind of normal sex, and it's a practice, it's a technique that works very well for the guy, not great for a woman. So much less likely to give her that fulfilling experience and to maintain her interest in sex.
Hmm. And even more so, it's like it's just so many levels to this, man. Because even natural, even like just run of the mill penis and vagina intercourse is so much less likely to give a woman orgasms, right? And then even more so, we're still in the paradigm of like men have orgasms, women want to have orgasms too, and we're still in that kind of like confined pleasure space where it's just about the orgasm. And neither partner in tradition, like the way that most people view sex, has expanded it to that space of saturating yourself in sexual energy. That dude, that's like I want to hit on that point as many times as
Mhm.
possible because that's such a dope,
Yeah.
such a great distinction, man. When you say
Which
control,
one?
the distinction
Mhm.
between um, seeing sex as a pleasure focused thing where it's about getting an orgasm, it's a means to an end, versus seeing sex as a space where sexual energy is flowing and the people
Mhm.
involved can
Mhm.
be saturated by sexual energy
Mhm.
and then go back into their lives
Mhm.
richer and
Mhm.
fuller. Um,
Mhm.
so when you say control, like I don't think men need to control themselves, but rather discover, a different way to view sex. How
Mhm.
would you use
Mhm.
Would you use consciousness as that? Do you think that when someone feels that they want to have sex and they must come, then they drop in their level of awareness because they just kind of go back to that animal level of just primitive need to more pleasure, more pleasure, more pleasure, more climax, and like it's a less conscious state than being like you know what I'm saying when you're just going into that rut of just
Yeah.
orgasm focused sex. Is that less conscious?
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Are you talking about men specifically
Yes.
in this case? Or yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think men tend to kind of lose themselves in that moment. They tend to be kind of carried away by it. Yeah. I think it is a loss of consciousness in that moment, and I think it will help if the the model of having sex for saturation that will help with that, because it will kind of if the model is saturation, then there is nowhere to get to. Like, it is about absorbing this moment now, so that brings you into this moment now.
Like a hot tub.
you know that's Yeah, like a hot tub.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, like being in nature, like everything. Yes, 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 exactly.
You said that
So the other thing.
you said saturation model.
Sorry, say.
Is that what you said? Saturation model.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can saturate through the whole body. The whole body is a space that can absorb, but specifically with genital energy, when you are getting close to an orgasm that might carry you away, then there is an awareness of how it flows into your body and how it is filling you up right now, transmitting through you, vibrating through you, and focusing on that phenomenon. Another thing that I would say is, this is a little bit more like, I don't know. Don't mean to sound moralistic or something, but I think it's my personal take. It's unethical for anybody to have sex with somebody because they want to come, yeah, or have sex with somebody because they just want an orgasm.
Yeah.
Like, if that's all you want, you can do it yourself, and you can't use another person for it, men or women. I think the reason the other person is there is not basically a device for you to come, but it is a live person with who you are interacting, with who you create that moment of um lovemaking. So if you're going to do it with a person, then I think the orgasm has to be more like a side effect of interacting with that person. And if it happens while you are still in that interaction and you're feeling each other, then it's no issue. But like, when it starts switching into I'm just using this person for that, then I think it becomes unethical. Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy, man. Like, I mean, you're rolling up there, dude. You're so far up there. I'm still unhooking from all this bullshit programming because all I hear is what I've heard before and how it contrasts to what you're saying. Like, it's unethical to fuck someone just to come. Such an interesting point, and that is
But can I just say that this is not like what you say, that you are still unhooking from all the bullshit. The entire culture has normalized,
the bullshit.
basically normalized unethical sex.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, it's normalized. It's like, get him to give you an orgasm.
That's right.
Like, don't let him be an asshole. Make you come. And it's like, well, just make him, like, use that person to give you an orgasm, for both sides. So, and it's considered normal. It's considered like, okay, if you turn me on, you have to make me come.
Yeah,
You're obliged to do that. Otherwise,
yeah.
what are you doing here with me? So,
Do they say
yeah,
blue balls in London?
they do. Yes.
Yeah, they do. And then it's like you're not meeting my needs, my sexual needs. That's what you hear a lot of times. It's like she's not giving me what I need. I have sexual energy, right? It's building up. I need a release. And that's how we think about our partnerships with people sexually. Is you're a place for me to go
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
dump this sexual energy or to use you to release this. You're kind of the release valve for me sexually. And that's one way to think about it, but it's also not the way that Alexey likes to think about it. That's the opposite of the way Alexey likes to think about it.
Yes, I think if that is all you need, do it on your own.
You just
Like,
need
if
to
that is
release.
literally all you need,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to release. You can release.
What
Like,
if you
you don't need to have blue balls. You can just go and release.
what if you want to release with that person? What if that's your feeling? Like, oh, I feel really horny right now. I want to maybe my partner, like I'm feeling hungry. Maybe my partner's hungry. You want to go eat something? Like I'm feeling horny. Are you horny? You in the mood? You want to fuck?
Hmm. Hmm. So, what if your partner is also on the same page? You mean?
Yeah. What if they're like, yeah, I'd be down to. I could. Yeah, I'd be down to do it. Yeah.
Like, I don't, I don't like to, I don't like to prohibit any kinds of sex. I like
Sure.
to be
Yeah.
sort of adding. I like to be adding to them, and I like people to just kind of have the whole range. Sometimes you just want to fuck.
Yeah.
Like, if you're both in the same place, if it's like a fun thing to do, you're both in that mood. You know, it's a part of your range, and that in itself can be sort of, a particular experience that will have a certain energy to it. I think we're just talking about. Um, I would say perhaps also thinking a bit about not prioritizing sex, but being aware of the value of different sexual experiences, what they actually contribute, what they bring into your life, what is the
Mm.
different nutrition from them. Being aware of that,
Yeah.
and making sure that basically you have real nutrition, even though you do, all these other things for fun.
Yeah. So let's
You
call
know?
let's call fucking just for coming's sake, like Twix bars and pleasure. It's just candy. It's just junk food. It's just it's nice sensation. It's really it gets your
Mm-hmm.
attention, but it's not nourishing. It's not
Mm-hmm.
everything you need. Yeah, of course we need some sweets, man. Life is wonderful, so enjoy it. What other components are there
Mm-hmm.
to the
Mm-hmm.
sexual experience? What other food groups are we missing in the bedroom?
Well, I don't like to make things too complicated. Create, like, lots of different categories and levels. I think, generally speaking, to make things really simple, you can think about sex as there is sex that is nourishing to you. So there is sex that is enriching you and bringing you that enrichment and nourishment. And then there is sex that you do just for fun, for the hell of it.
Mm,
And they're kind of both big buckets. There's lots of different kinds of sex that can go into each of those two buckets.
yeah, and
So, yeah.
and generally the theme of this conversation
Hmm.
and one of the things I sense that you want to bring to the world is helping people realize there's another bucket than just the fun for the hell of its sex. There's a whole nother bucket.
Yes, yes, yes. It is not to tell them that first bucket is illegal and you must never do it. You know,
It's illegal.
so
It's
I try to
illegal
make
to
that
have
very
sex
clear.
come.
Yes, uh, it's it's just like if that's all you've got, then you're with a partner for jokes,
For
and then it
entertainment, yeah.
becomes like yeah, and it becomes like an impoverished relationship, and then because the need for nourishment doesn't go away. People feel the need for connection, for love, and for nourishment, but they try to achieve it with trinkets, and then it doesn't deliver. So if you have like a really strong practice of nourishing sex that delivers that to you, and then you can explore all the different fun and adventurous kinds of sex, but you just with awareness, that's what they're for.
Yeah.
It's also like, I think it also fits into that concept of nourishment, because we are nourishing our adventurous selves, our fun self,
Mhm.
with that as well. So it's all a part of life, and it's not to what you call it, diminish those experiences.
Yeah.
They have their place, but it is just to bring our attention to the fact that we are not just, we don't want just entertainment. It's
Yeah.
not fulfilling for us to have just that in life.
The connection.
So yes, you're right. I teach the sex that is nourishing sex, but because I feel that there is a kind of
There's
a gap and a
yeah,
need to balance it more with that,
I totally
while I'm
understand.
aware that there's a million places people can go to learn about fun sex.
Yeah, 100%. We've got too much of the fun sex material where they're lacking. We don't have enough nourishing sex. I mean, we literally are struggling to grab language for it during this conversation because we're like, I don't know,
Mm,
you know,
mm, mm.
it's hard to pull off of the pleasure button, you know. I mean, I know it has been for me. It's been helpful to pull off of the pleasure button. Uh, but like pleasure, what's interesting, Alex,
It,
say is
it,
pleasure at first was the lead out of the darkness for the compulsive sexual behavior, because all the compulsive sexual behavior was in response to discomfort, frustration, irritation. It was void of feeling good. I just
mhm,
felt less bad. And then the more and more I tuned into my body, less fantasy, less anticipation, more paying attention to what's going on right now, I started to get in touch with the sensations in my body, started to feel pleasure in my body again. And then it was like, oh my God, sex is really pleasureful. This feels really good. And then you can go beyond
yeah,
that, and so you can begin to expand where you say, okay, now you've joined the rest of the world, Braxton, people who are having sex that's fun and pleasurable. Now let's move on. Let's expand to include experiences that are nourishing to your soul. And it's just hard to come off the pleasure button because it feels so good. You go like, you know, but one interesting thing that you said in a video was like pulling away from just, and again, I think everyone knows at this point that we're not bashing fun and exciting pleasurable sex, but to open and expand your experiences to include other ones. And you said that like there are so many types of sex that are not exciting but are so
mhm,
so good for you and so nourishing. And you
mhm,
used the example of meditation,
mhm,
which I thought that was great. Meditation's so powerful and such an amazing thing to have in your life, but it's not exciting.
mhm, mhm. There are many things that are not, that we wouldn't call exciting in the sense of entertaining or kind of arousing in that way, but we really value them in life. I think, yeah, I see exciting sex as one of the kinds of sex on the spectrum.
Does
Uh, but I think, yeah. Tell me.
does guys maybe f- not feel comfortable in sex as a space to saturate in because it feels too feelings. It feels too kind of hairy, kind of like too embodied, kind of too much here and now, and less conquest.
Well, a man is a human being, and as a human being, he has a deep need for love and connection and feel good and happiness. So I would say most men have a need for that
Hmm.
still.
But we're told
Like, whether they
just the programming, like we just learn to be,
told what.
like we're just told that we like crossing the finish line, touchdowns, and getting the win. So we just think that's kind of how we are the way we're told to operate in a way.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess we are talking about, what is a really fundamental human experience when we take off these, these ideas that were given by culture.
Yeah,
Like fundamentally,
yeah,
we've just all been through COVID. What have we learned in the lockdowns is that connection is human connection is like was practically like air to people.
dude.
You know.
See, man, that's the thing, bro. That's where this gets a little bit sticky, gets a little bit scary. Is connection, like it's like that's connecting to somebody. It gets that's when it gets like I can even feel my heart kind of start to close a little bit, clench up, and goes like I don't know about that, man. There's some pain in there. There's some,
Mm,
there's some
mm.
trauma in there. There's some unhealed stuff in there. And hey, how about instead of connecting, we just fuck people and come? Like that's a great way to do it. We'll just fuck as many people, and we'll just like stay on that pleasure circuit all the time. I did that for a while, but it's hard, man. Like
Well,
it's
and there you go.
yeah, the
And there you
connection.
go. You did it for a while, and maybe you just need to do it for a while to realize that there's nothing that you will not run away from yourself.
Yeah, but you feel that there's still this like risk. It's a beautiful thing, man. I love this is where the conversation is in right now. It's a beautiful thing. Is you strip away what you're told from maybe gender norms and what people expect in you, and you find you're a human being. And the thing about humans is we desperately need love and connection. We need that. And
But also, look, I don't think men are strangers to love and connection.
hmm,
So men love their parents, they love their children, they love their God, they love their friends. There's like it's for men to love is something also natural. Somehow we didn't, culturally we took a turning where sex became not about love. Like love is not the important thing in sex, which is really ridiculous, because if there's one area where I'd say it has to be about love, shouldn't it be the intimacy through the bodies? But anyway, this has happened. So um I think even when we all the religions and all the spiritual traditions, eventually we arrive to that we are an experience of love and connectedness to everything. So everything is about that, and men connect, they connect with each other, they connect with the sports team, they feel connection with the sports team, they feel love with the sports team,
mm,
so it's present in a man's life. I think uh, just the recognition that surely it is you have a deep need for that aspect, for that in physical intimacy with the person that you love as well, and you love that person. Like men, they love their partners, they love their wives.
looking at sex as an opportunity for connection genuinely feels like a ass backwards way to look at it from the way that we learn it in our community, yeah, like in our upbringing.
Yeah,
It looks like oh, it's not for the feely touchy, like it's for, like we said earlier, like it's for pleasure and entertainment. It's something fun to do with
yeah,
somebody else's body.
yeah,
But I mean, we're really hitting
yeah.
good stuff
I,
here.
I, I think this is, I think this is cultural, and there are many established sex authors and sex therapists, and generally kind of media that still drives the message that sex is not about love. Sex, in fact, making sex about love is something really mushy and boring and kind of yucky, you know?
Yeah, it is. That's
Um,
the feelings that I'm getting right now.
yeah, yeah. And I think these are like, stereotypes and caricatures. And I think it's because we as a culture have not really explored sex that is real love. You know, um, we have never had a culture of loving sex that is really, powerful. That is a practice where you actually can feel it as a powerful sexual energy. And if we did that, we would see that this is the most, like, I over the 20 years that I've been working, I have come to believe this is the most important sexual energy. It's the most powerful sexual energy.
Love.
There's nothing that is, yes, it is an actual energy in sex. It's an actual, you could call it a practice, you can call it an intent, you can call it an experience that you're feeling in sex. And I've come to see, and I've explored this a lot, and I've worked with it a lot in the sense of like trying to understand how to put it into a practical, into practice itself, to kind of to emphasize that aspect to the experience. And you know I think it is really amazing how much more powerful it is than anything else in sex. you
What
know
is,
so we are getting the best sex by doing that.
what does love feel like during sex?
We can get into a philosophical discussion here. I intuit, but I just try to keep it really simple. Um, like, it is just transmitting the energy of love from your body to your partner. It is loving the body of your partner, not using them, not um, working them. It is interacting with the partner as a living person that is nourished by your love. So you're transmitting that, and you are also loving their body in the way that you are enjoying and savoring their body. So it's just an energy that you transmit in that moment. It doesn't even need you to be, in a relationship as such.
Mhm.
It is an energy that exists in that moment. It's almost like a mode. If you think about a mode of that you can be in,
Like a loving
you
mode.
know, what's yeah, like what's the opposite of love and sex? That'd be interesting. What do you think?
The opposite of loving sex.
The opposite of love in sex.
I'd say s- like take, like rape, something
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
using,
Yeah. Yeah.
objectifying.
Mhm. For me, the opposite of love in sex is work.
Hmm.
Just working somebody mechanically. There's no feeling in it.
Okay, hold on.
You just you're just stimulating it. You just working the machine.
Mm, okay, interesting. Working them
So,
mechanically,
and mechanically, yes.
like a pinball
So
machine.
this is the clitoris. I'm gonna have to do this, and this is I have to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're trying to get in that person. Yeah, it's the whole thing, man. The whole thing. I mean, dude, the fucking saturation model is dope, man. It is a really, really great way to look at it. It is. It's so good. The opposite of love in sex is working somebody and working yourself. Yeah.
If you're talking about a saturation model, I think the most powerful thing you can saturate with is also love from the person that you're with. It's not the sexual energy. Like, that's also very nice, but the absolutely most powerful, most impactful thing is when you absorb love
When you absorb love.
and when you send it. Yeah.
Okay. Quick bathroom break, real quick, and then I'd love to come back if
Yeah.
you're cool with
Go
it
for it.
to sending and
Mhm.
absorbing love.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
I'm like, I can talk for hours, man. There's no
Cool.
rush.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's talk about
Guys,
everything.
sounds good.
Get everything you can today. Yeah.
All right, be right back. So the
Uh,
things that come to mind, man, is about this love stuff is just
mhm,
how, like, bro, sex is seen, and I appreciate just kind of let me process this out loud. It's really helping me.
mhm.
Sex is seen
Yeah.
and is dirty and wrong, and there's like this
Uh-huh.
just bad tone to it. at least the way I was raised.
Hmm.
And
Which is really funny in the religion of love, isn't it?
yeah, which is really funny in a religion of love. But sex is this space that exists. There's a space that exists where this energy flows, sexual energy, and within sexual energy, there's these a spectrum of different emotional substances that are there, and all
Yeah.
sex is entering that space to saturate yourself in sexual energy,
Amazing summary.
and one of those is love,
And the most important one.
and the most important one. Does What's the different texture to the love that exists within sexual energy that is not in the love that exists in doing volunteer work or helping somebody across the street? Is it the same love ingredient, just in a different mixture, like a recipe of sex?
I suppose. I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose it is. I suppose it is also. Um, yeah, it's a similar intent. I mean, if you follow any spiritual tradition far enough, in the end, all that's left is love anyway, right?
Yeah.
So everything is like, I don't know, this camera is made of love or whatever. But um, I think there's definitely a really powerful component to physical love, which as adults we can only experience through sex.
What do you mean? We can only
And
experience it through sex.
well, as a child you get like hugged and held by your parents,
Mm.
and the physical love is something you absorb as a child, and it's important to people when they had physical contact, didn't have physical contact as a child, like as an adult obviously we can only get it from sexual partners. um and I think it's just really really profound. I mean, I have focused a lot on loving sex in my work, so I've tracked a lot of clients, the changes that happened in their life, in their relationships. It just seems to be like a really potent substance. And if you look into, you know, um, things from neuroscience, etc. So it's not really chemistry. It's not like it's not even about oxytocin. It's about activating particular parts of your psyche and your brain through that physical love that is just really healing and nourishing and restorative and empowering. So this it's obviously just the beginning of the exploration discovery of it. We are still to discover a lot more from it, but you know I think it's going to become more and more apparent why and how it's so powerful. Yeah.
What have we not talked about that is important that we talk about so far in our conversation?
What do you feel?
My mind's blown, to be honest with you, bro. My mind's kind of wide open right now. It's just like, oh, okay. I didn't know anything.
Do you need a minute?
Uh,
Do you need a minute to pick it all
I
up?
need a few weeks. In a few weeks, I need that. We need to do this again. Really?
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I'm just like sincerely, my mind has. I've gained language today on, and maybe this is me slowing down, dude. But I've gained language on fun, thrilling sex and nourishing sex, and the existence of a whole nother dimension. And also, the greatest thing today has been, now my brain thinks about sex as a space that exists where sexual energy is flowing, and you enter that space to
Mhm.
saturate yourself in these life-giving, enriching, nourishing emotions, of which one is, and the most important of those is love itself.
Mhm.
Hmm. It's so different.
Bet you're looking forward to being with Lauren.
Yeah. Yeah. And the to be extremely, to be transparent, that makes me bump up against some of my own avoidant tendencies in love. The fear of experiencing that.
Uh, you know, I think it really isn't all that big and scary. I think a weird thing has happened with love in sex. It's been um despised by our culture. It's been demonized by our culture. That it's this really scary thing that's going to destroy you if you experience love and sex. I think it is really, really simple, and it's just a really nice feel good,
Mm.
and it's just a really lovely energy that is nourishing you. I mean, you love your partner, you love transmitting some nourishing, loving energy to her. You love her body. You receiving the same back. It's nourishing you. It's like sunshine. You're absorbing it. I think there's nothing.
Scary.
If you see it like that as a substance, yeah, yeah, nothing. If you see it like that as a substance in sex, that's just like is substance like sunshine. You
Yeah.
know, it's just really nourishing for you. I can understand completely, like when people feel, oh, I don't know if I can open to love when I meet the next person that I'm dating, because they feel all kinds of risks of like losing themselves, or they're they've had problems with boundaries before, or there's all sorts of psychological stuff that goes on that is scary for people, and that's understandable. And I always try to make clear that, like, in sex, I really think things are a lot more simple, and it's got nothing to do with any of that.
Hmm.
It's just like if you just feel it as that
Hmm.
energy that flows between your
Hmm.
bodies. It's really beautiful. There's nothing bad about it, nothing
You don't have to tell yourself
dangerous
stories about it.
about it.
You don't have
Sorry?
to make up a story about it and say, "Oh, this means this, and now this might happen, and oh my god, da 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 da."
People who made stories about love in sex, um, I don't know where they came from, because I don't I'm not aware of sex being practiced with love in our culture in any historical period.
Mm. Does it
So I don't know where the stories came from. Is it imagination? Is it assumption? What is it?
is it the pain? Is it the trauma that people feel with love? Is it the love going away, and that's okay because that's life? Like people fall in love and then they break up, and then instead of growing up to realize like that happens, relationships are not forever, they're not permanent, that's part of life. Instead of opening themselves to that maturation process of going, you know love comes and goes through different forms, lovers, friends, families, jobs, etc., and kind of opening yourself to the ever changing dynamic to life, that they close and say fuck that because it hurt when it left, so I don't want it again because then it's just going to leave.
Sure. But you are talking here about, like I said, about love in the context of a relationship, not in sex. Yeah. So you're talking
Mm.
about like being with somebody, stopping being with somebody. Um, and I always want to stay within my remit here, that, I'm not an expert on relationships. And I would be talking out of my ass if I was saying, oh, just love is not scary. Go and, be free with love, stop being a woos.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't do that, because I know that in relationships, it can be a complicated thing. Like, what is love, and what is it composed of, and what does it bring with it? And there are a lot of really good professional people who work with that. But uh, in the space of
Mm.
sex that we're talking about here, it's really, really
I
simple,
love that you
and there's nothing scary, nothing damaging about
I
it.
love that you say that, man. I love that I mean, that's a really helpful reminder for me, my brother. Like, it's it's a really simple thing. It's just feeling love in sex and allowing that to be part of the texture of the moment, and allowing that to be part of the experience, the exchange, to give and to receive love, and even feeling safe enough to just allow that love to be something that exists within that space that we said sex is, where sexual energy is flowing of the emotional currents. One of those is love. It's just allowing yourself to dip your hand also into that river and to feel those sensations. It doesn't have to say anything about you or anything about them or anything about the stories that may
Mhm.
leave the bedroom and say, oh well, I'm not worthy of love, or they're gonna love me and leave me, and da 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 da. It's like it's not even their love. Maybe it's not even their love that you're feeling. It's the love that you guys accessed together through sexual union.
Exactly.
that kind of.
Exactly.
I don't want to feel.
Very
I don't
good.
want to feel your love because it might smother me. Or I don't want to feel your love because I might lose myself in you. I want to feel your love. And it's like, nah, man, we just reached up with each other and synergistically access this beautiful thing called love, this current. So why not dive in?
Yes. Through your bodies, you create the portal to a dimension
Mm.
that is there for you.
See that right there, man. I
So,
think that's probably a key point for people that even like myself might feel a little bit of heels down when you start saying, well, sex is about this love. Sex is about feeling love. And they go, I don't know, man, my relationship with love is kind of creaky. I got some avoidance of it, or I'm anxious about love, or I fear that I'll be abandoned, or XYZ.
mhm,
It's nice to think like, no,
mhm,
love is just love is a current, it's a frequency that exists in reality, and you can tune to it, you can experience it. And one place that it's potent is this container of sexuality. And so you can go to that
mhm,
space with someone and experience
mhm.
love with them, but it's not necessarily their love. It's just you guys have accessed it together and you're experiencing love. That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Um, well, I think you're still being a little bit chicken shit there by by calling it not necessarily your love.
Mm,
You can see it this way, but also like be brave. What's wrong with loving your woman
mm.
in sex? Just transmitting, like nourishing her with your love. I think we don't want to get too like spiritually high here. I think it's really important also to leave space for like a really genuine, authentic, normal human connection.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it is our love. It is my love to you, and it is your love to me. And also, there is that universal love that we access as well, and it all becomes love. But also, there are times when um, your partner, your girlfriend, your wife can come from work, and she's had a shit day, and you will hold her and you will transmit love to her, and it's just a very simple act of recharging her and nourishing her.
Yeah.
You know, with your love, not with universal God's love. You know,
Damn it. Damn it. I try to dip out on
I know you were trying to escape.
I appreciate that.
I caught you.
I appreciate that, my friend. Not many people will call you out on
But
the bullshit. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm. I would also say, it is definitely. You're right. It's definitely pushing. It's pushing the comfort level. It's pushing the boundaries. Um, and it is like quite a maybe perhaps a bit of a feels like a bit of a stretch, right? Because we're so used to not opening ourselves to love in sex. But I mean, this is the only destination really that's a healthy one if you can think of
Yeah.
for sex, right? What is the next thing for sex? Like surely it has to become love.
Yeah. Surely that's the yeah,
Um,
100%.
eh,
That's like the aim of the thing,
so
right? It's to give and to receive love and to be saturated in love.
yes, and there's kind of there's no other logical evolution that we can think of for sex, like in a healthy way, that to become an experience of love. So, if we think about like from it being the procreative thing and just making babies and then as pleasure and like what's the next thing? I mean, surely, it's moving towards love. So, yes, it might be like a bit of an unusual idea, a bit of a kind of people are meeting it a bit maybe sooner than they thought they would be ready for. But the thing is, um, you will come to love eventually, right? Hopefully, like that's a good scenario to come to love. Now, do you want to come to it much later in life? Do you want to come to it sooner in life? You know,
Yeah.
but sooner or later, you will understand that it's all about that anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well challenging yourself now
Oh,
in kind of thinking, okay, yes, it is maybe a little bit a bit kind of more comfortable than I thought it would be. But if it's going to go that way anyway, well, let's
let's dive in.
do it sooner. Yes, so we can enjoy more of life ahead of us.
Man. Damn. Alexey, My man, Jesus Christ. This has been a truly, truly helpful conversation for me and my journey. And I hope other people who are listening to this feel the same way. Dude, I'm so grateful for the work that you've put into understanding this and to being a conduit for this amazing message about love and about sex. And dude, you rock, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, man. You too.
Thanks.
You rock too. Your journey. Respect it very much.
Yeah.